We talk about Clubhouse marketing, integrations, and cross promotion with Instagram, brand ambassadors, and branding for cannabis brands on this week's episode of the LA Business Podcast. Welcome to the LA Business Podcast, your destination to hear stories of how businesses grow and scale. I'm Robert Brill, CEO of Brill Media and the host of this podcast. Now, let's jump right into this week's interview. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the LA Business Podcast. This is take two. Today our guest is Michele Harrington, head of partnerships at Foria. Michele helped her husband, retired NBA star Al Harrington, launch Viola, the largest Black-owned multinational cannabis brand in the world. Michele, thanks for being with us. Tell us a little bit about Foria and Viola and how you're touching all of those, both of those brands.
Thanks for having me, Robert. It's a really funny story on how we got started with Viola. Al's grandmother at the time was visiting us from Fayetteville, North Carolina. She had come up to watch a couple of Denver Nuggets games, and she had been struggling with glaucoma. At the time, we didn't know much about cannabis. Al wasn't smoking. It was just always, generationally, just stay away from drugs. So at the time, he asked a couple people in Denver because where it was legal recreationally and what strains could provide his grandmother relief. So we wanted her to try it, but the elderly, they're just so reluctant.
It's a big deal. It's a big deal, right? It's like you have a whole lifetime of how this is the devil's drug.
Yeah.
And who knows what's going to happen if you try it, and it's a gateway, and who cares how old I am. I don't know if I'll be as susceptible to a gateway to who knows what other drug. Yeah, it's a lifetime of ingrained negativity towards the drug.
Yeah, and when we approached her, and she's like, I don't want to smoke no reefer. And it was hilarious because you're like, reefer? So what you had to respect her wishes. We definitely ran down the benefits. Hope she changed her mind while she was visiting us. So a couple days later, she was in the room and she was sitting there and we're like, Grandma, what's wrong? And she's like, her eyes are hurting her so bad that she tried anything. So Al got out the pen and vaped for her for the first time. And it was pretty interesting because, she took that hit and we're like, Grandma.
Yeah. Okay. What was the reaction, right? Like
her reaction immediately. So immediately after she vaped, we kind of wanted it to set in. We knew it would be an immediate relief, but we wanted her to sit with it. So Al went upstairs, got dressed for the game. I got the kids dressed for the game. And then he later on, right before the game, so probably about 2 hours had passed, we went to go check on her and her back was to us as we walked in the room. And she was sitting there holding the Bible. And she told us, she was like, she hadn't been able to see the words of her Bible in the 2 years. And it was like, this is a 79-year-old woman who had nothing to benefit from telling us that cannabis was helping her. And that was, I realized that, we're onto something. And he created Viola and named it after his grandmother, whose name is Viola Harrington.
That's really sweet. I love that. That story already there is such a great story. And what I find about business owners and entrepreneurs is that you really take a personal experience, a personal story, and that's the driving force in creating a business that ultimately strives to help many other people. Okay, so you said that was 2011.
That was 2011, yeah, and then. Cost of time. I feel like everyone now is like, you guys got in at a great time because the market is saturated. But it just happened that organically that got into the business.
It sounds like, I think we're still very early stages in this business. I mean, this is a market that probably will take many, at least another decade to like get to a point where big brands evolve and everything's up for grabs.
For sure.
So tell us, okay, so that's Viola. And so, what's interesting about, I looked at the website for Foria and the website for Viola, and I understand you're touching both of those and having your brand and marketing impact on both of those. The vibe of each of the products of the websites is very, very different. It's starkly different. It's kind of amazing. Like I love how dramatically different these brands look and feel, and that's coming out of your brain, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a
It's a
compilation
group effort, but
of brains, but yeah, group effort. But yeah, for sure. I think the direction that Foria has been going, they are organic, plant based, very earth conscious. And that's how I raise my kids and that's how I live my life. On the other side with Viola, it's more of a lifestyle. It's the culture we live in. So I'm very much, although there's stark differences in each, I'm very much both of those. So it's fun to be in both spaces. We were introduced to Foria about 4 years ago, after Al received samples at a business conference. And a lot of people say to us, which is funny, is like, I'm introducing my girlfriends to Foria and my friends, and a lot of people are getting introduced to the brand by women. I was introduced by my husband, who was like, what is this? Let's try this. And the pandemic gave me time to sit with each of, the products to kind of figure out, is this something that I want to incorporate into my self care? I've always been so busy taking care of my husband, the 4 kids, you know, um, dibbling dabbling in Viola, that I rarely had time for myself. So I used the pandemic to really dive deep into Foria, and I spent time kind of like R&D. Like I seeded it to several of my friends. I did Zoom calls, got feedback by it. And what we realized is that none of my friends who are of different ethnicities knew anything about Foria. And
yeah.
I wanted to change that. I was like, there's no reason that we shouldn't be shouting this from the rooftops on, because where Black women are most affected by being misdiagnosed for endometriosis and other things that this product can help provide relief for. Um, so, that's just how it went. I dove into it, and I was just so passionate about getting the word out that I actually reached out to Foria, um, and pitched to them about how I could help them dive in and get involved in the multicultural market. Just
So tell us about that. How does, what types of conversations are those, and what's the outcome of those conversations?
um, I think I brought to them on how can we start a brand ambassador program,
Mhm.
a program introducing women of different ethnicities and having them introduce it to their communities. And that's where we started. Um, because I just think that you're gonna, like me, you're gonna want to know about something from your friends. So
Right.
if you can introduce it to different brand ambassadors and they introduce it to their communities, you start to change the narrative over time. What this product is, the benefits of it, and how it can be useful.
The website is very the website for Foria is the key tagline on the website is "Come everywhere."
That's our new campaign.
I love it. I love it. So what's other than the obvious, what's the goal of this campaign?
It's to let everyone know that there's such a difference in how I think 91% of men are orgasming and
Mhm,
68% of women are orgasming. I mean, there's such a stark difference in the pleasure gap that
mhm.
we want women to be coming anywhere and everywhere.
Right.
Much that's essentially, and the way we're doing that is we're educating people, we're holding club room houses, and
Ooh.
bringing sexperts up and talking to different people and holding like a safe space for people to talk about. And I think a lot of people are um, more at ease talking about sex from that audio perspective because they don't have to be in person, they're not on a camera, and you
Right.
can say whatever and not feel like someone's judging you. And we hold that safe space on Clubhouse, and we also have like some Instagram lives. Like I have one going live today, talking to different brand ambassadors and kind of highlighting them and letting
Mhm.
people know that they are a voice in the community and helping educate people.
So tell us about Clubhouse Marketing. What are the key sort of tenets that you deploy there to gain awareness? I have some ideas about what it could be, but I'm interested in your firsthand experience on that.
We started a club, and named it Foria, obviously. And what we do is during the month of May, we held a room every Friday. I think with Clubhouse, the more rooms you're hosting, the more you're gaining that traction and people are seeing you. And then you cross promote on Instagram, and just get the word out. And I think having experts, people in the space too, promoting on their social media, it all drives it all to Clubhouse. And then when you're consistent at that same time, that same day of week, it helps build your club. We've for the month of May, we went from 0 members in our club to now we have 300. And in our rooms, just getting the right people who are on Clubhouse often, getting them to kind of join your rooms and join the conversation. People with 14,000 followers, anything in that range gets people, oh, what room are they in, or what are they talking about? And a lot of people get to join. We've had over like 1,500 in a room at one point.
Wow. So it's interesting, right? Because when you look at tobacco advertising from the 50s and 60s and 70s, it's much more about a lifestyle component. Because I mean, look at cigarettes, you look at um, gasoline, fuel. It's a commodity. At the end of the day, it's to the end consumer. A lot of the product is perceived to be the same. So the difference is, now they may not actually be the same, but it's hard for the average consumer to distinguish, right, between what's different than the other. So orienting around a lifestyle seems to be the critical element to kind of distinguish the business. Is that right?
For sure. I feel that with Foria, it's with Viola, it's established around a lifestyle. It's, you know, um, just that culture thing that we've been so demonized and weaponized by this drug, that now, that it's legal, on the state level, there's so much more, like, it's going to calm you, it's going to ease your anxiety, it's going to, anti-inflammatory benefits. And then on the Foria side, it's just about, like, we have so many nerve endings in our pelvic floor as women, that CBD relaxes you, making you available to reach those heights that men reach very fast. So it helps, facilitate blood flow to our genitals to help you get to where a man is faster.
Hmm.
Essentially,
Wow.
yeah.
And so what happened during the pandemic? How did that affect Foria and Viola over the last year and a half?
We were, honestly, people are at home. What are you doing when you're at home on four? On four, there's a lot of COVID babies. I'm just saying.
Right,
um,
right.
with Viola, our business was essential because I think if you're home, you're experiencing some level of anxiety about, what's going to happen. You're experiencing, you're going crazy, being stagnant in the house. You might have lost your job. So Viola was very essential and help people kind of not lose their marbles. They're just kind of just, consuming cannabis and kind of relaxing. Essentially. So
And what does the next year and a half look like for you, for both brands? What are you
what
focusing on?
I'm focusing on Viola. I mean, on Foria. Viola is, just continuing to, as the licensure, as it becomes legal and the licensure becomes available in different states, Viola's task and, uh, over the next couple of years is going to be gaining those licensing so that we can continue to, push out an amazing product and be in the state to state. So that's Viola's next couple of years. Foria, we want to even the playing field, with men,
Mhm.
as far as, and even, um, women to women, men to men. It just encompasses. There's no right way to do it or wrong way to do it. It just, we are waiting for that pleasure gap. And I think for me, the most part, having the communication in the bedroom And I think we push this a lot in our rooms, on my lives. Having communication in a bedroom is essential. If you are not communicating with your significant other, you should
Right.
the bedroom, you should not be having sex with them, because if you can't have those conversations, and then you're worried about they're not pleasing me, or you have these issues, first starts is communication.
So, what do you enjoy most about your role at Foria?
This is a good question because I enjoy everything about it. I get to talk about sex with everybody and anybody all of the time. Uh,
Okay.
and it's fun because there's a lot of people that don't know certain things. Like, for instance, if we have the same as women, we have the same amount of erectile tissue as men do. Ours just is just wired differently. Uh,
Mhm.
we get to like bring these things to the forefront, letting people know that there's nothing wrong with you if you didn't get a chance to orgasm during, because we're taught as women that sex and starts and ends with penetration, and that's not true. Um,
Right.
so I want them to understand how beneficial CBD is and how it's powerful too, for also not even on the sexual part of it, on the intimacy part of it, for the wellness of your overall health. It just provides relaxation on a deeper level, because over 80%, not only are we not orgasming, over 80% of women experience painful menstrual cramps and aren't aware of how CBD can help. um, and I think 75 is it 75% of women never reach orgasm from intercourse alone, and 10 to 15 never reach it on any circumstance at all. So just trying to educate women on, like we had, for instance, we had May during Clubhouse. We had a whole May about masturbation, about
Mm.
if you can't please, if you don't know how to please yourself, how are you going to tell someone else how to please you? So I just think it's just about education. And I think that's what I love about talking about sex and talking about wellness. Just getting people to see the plant in a different light.
You know, from an entrepreneurial perspective, you could have chosen a lot of different industries or businesses to go into. Why did you choose cannabis?
Well, I chose Foria. I just gave you the story on how Viola
Sh-
came to,
Sure.
but for me, having dove into the products of Foria with the CBD aspect of it, because a lot of people are not willing, they don't want to get high. They don't want to feel that body, those different things that the plant, on the THC side can provide. They just want the medicinal benefits of the plant. So I dove into CBD because not only is it helping me, I have 4 children. Not only is it helping me have more grace and patience with my children, with the tonic and the overall wellness. It's helping me. Um, it's helping me relax, and I'm indulging in my self care. So once I realized that it was night and day, about Foria, that's when it was like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to tell, and the legacy I want to leave for my children.
And why is it important? Let's talk about the diversity aspect of this. I think the cannabis industry is primarily
Male dominated.
male dominated. How do you how does that how do you experience that, and tell us about the importance of you being in the business.
Well, that's one of the reasons that, as I wanted to join Foray and bring all these other women of different ethnicities into the space. I spent the last 11 years as a stay-at-home mom, supporting my husband in the business, and I just think that representation matters. Being a voice, in the industry that other Black women can look to, and realize that they too can join this business and join, this industry, is so vital, and it helps bring more diversity and equity and inclusion into the business. It starts with one person bringing others along, and that's been one of my main goals, to help diversify the industry.
One of the things I learned as I was growing up is like as a white dude, it's like the whole world is my oyster. And as I grew up and it's like, man, if I'm a woman, if I'm a person of color, it's like I wouldn't see myself. It's like the empathy there of like I won't have the opportunity to see myself in those positions of power or leadership or whatever the case is. Or it, it's a big meaningful thing that I think is incredibly important for there to be diversity and to have representation.
Are aware of it, and that's where I think where it hurts, because they're not aware of that privilege that exists, where they are given a head start, and we have so many, we're weighted down with so many other things. But I think that's why it's important, um, for Black women to reach back and help other women of color and keep that door open. I feel like it's each one teach one, in order to break these glass ceilings and diversify the industry, um, giving back and mentoring the next generation. So, I'm also giving the brand ambassadors an opportunity, to invest in Foria as well.
So tell us about the brand ambassadors.
Uh,
What's their role in this process?
So their role is just to reach out to their communities, and with different campaigns and just their testimonies. Their testimonies. The majority. One of my main things about brand ambassadors is I just don't want you to try to push a product for a code. I want you to believe in it. And so we go through a kind of like intense. We have a sex doula and a sex expert that is in house, on our Foria team. And we bring her in and we pretty much go through the entire anatomy. We really educate and put that emphasis so then they can go ahead and educate their communities and really have the knowledge and expertise to kind of do so.
And what are the results that you've been seeing on the ambassador program? Like, how do you measure success there?
Just not only, I mean, obviously you want the sales, but for me, it's been how many people know about Foria now, and how many people will say, "Oh, you do that Foria thing, right?" They, even if they don't know exactly what Foria is, they have an inclination, like, to ask me. People that I've never met before, and I don't have a huge following on Instagram. I think I have, in the 20s, but people are trusting my voice, and my people know that I'm not going to just say it and not really stand behind it.
Well, your website is takes a very particular stand and goes a long way. So like you have some. I really think the lifestyle component of the brand is really fascinating to me. Like your your some of your blog posts that are prominent on the site. The Lazy Girl's Guide to Orgasms, Text Dirty to Me, 8 Menopause Symptoms CBD could help. Like it's a really clear, defined message. And so you said this campaign is relatively new. The
Yeah,
campaign Come Everywhere. So what like are you is it a little bit of trying to raise eyebrows and get people
yeah,
talking about sex?
a little bit of shock value to, whatever you're doing, in marketing, to kind of get the clickbait. But for us, like I said, it's just we're also doing a campaign, next week. What's in your spend the night bag, and have,
Mm.
that overnight bag. We're talking about all the things that people want to talk about and they're not talking about it because they're scared. And I think me jumping out there as Al's wife, I've been married to him for 13 years. We've been together since we were 19. We have 4
Sweet.
children, 3 dogs. People are wondering, how am I keeping my relationship together? So I think I'm a trusted voice in the space. And if I'm talking about it, maybe it'll give the person next to me the courage to want to talk about it, and talk about it with her partner or his partner.
I love it. And tell us, Michelle, how can people find you, and tell us the URLs for both brands.
And you can find us at foriawellness.com. You can use Michele20 to get a 20% discount
Mm.
for our Robert Brill's listeners. You can find me on Instagram as well as Foria. Foria's Instagram handle is Foria Wellness, and mine is Mrs. MRS Harrington.
Very cool. Michele Harrington, Head of Strategic Partnerships at Foria. Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the LA Business Podcast. If you like what we're doing on this podcast, please consider subscribing on Apple or Google Play, leaving a 5-star review, and sharing with your friends. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations for a guest you'd like to hear on this podcast, please email me, robert@brillmedia.co. Thank you. Have a fantastic day.